some updates from LA, from Los Angeles. So, United States Northern Command confirms 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines are preparing to deploy to Los Angeles, California to anti-ICE riots. Additional 2,000 more National Guard troops coming. Mic drop, Trump and Hegseth. Impeach Gavin. Deport LA police. Look armed now. Arrest all. That guy's very excited. Here is some footage of the militarized police presence in Los Angeles yesterday. There they are. To protect and serve. You might remember in the 50s, you used to see the cartoons of the little kid going up to the friendly neighborhood policeman. And now you look at how the cops are depicted. I saw a meme about that, the evolution of the cops as they relate to the community.
Yeah, I saw that.
There they go.
Didn't they have a meme of that showed how the Lego cop evolved?
Yeah, it was a Lego cop. I think that was, yes.
Yeah.
It was definitely, they did a Lego version as well. Yep, that was pretty clever. So there they come. That is quite the caravan on its way to Los Angeles. CNN had the report. Breaking news from the Pentagon. CNN can now report roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the LA protests.
From the Pentagon, CNN can now report that roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the protests in Los Angeles.
And this is a significant escalation from President Trump, who had activated National Guard troops over the weekend without Governor Gavin Newsom's consent. In this new move, active duty military members are being deployed as a show of force against U.S. citizens. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is live for us at the Pentagon. Natasha, what are you learning?
Well, Brianna, this is something that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had previewed over the weekend. He said that if necessary, he would deploy the Marines to Los Angeles to
Cannot
help
be reached for comment
agents.
at the moment. He's singing Sweet Caroline in the bathroom with the door locked. We can't seem to get him out. Must have had a long night.
With handling the protests there, and it appears now that these Marines, according to our sources, they have been mobilized. These 500 Marines, a full Marine battalion based out of 29 Palms, California, which is just outside San Bernardino, about an hour away from Los Angeles. They have been mobilized and they are gearing up to go and help ICE agents as well as other federal officials deal with these protests in Los Angeles. Importantly, they're going to be bolstering as well the National Guard, guardsmen and women who have been activated in Los Angeles by President Trump. But as you said, it is a significant escalation of the president's use of the military as a show of force against these protesters. It's really not clear, the last time Marines were deployed to help essentially with riot control, though it's unclear at this point just what their actual tasking will be. Typically, if they are deployed to these situations, it is expected that they will operate in much the same way that the National Guard does, doing things like perimeter security, maybe some crowd control. But the rules of engagement here, we are told, are still being finalized, and Defense Department lawyers are also looking at the kinds of rules of engagement these Marines will have as they encounter protesters possibly on the streets of Los Angeles. But again, this coming at a very, very tense moment with the governor of California suing the Trump administration over, of course, the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump against his will there in California.
Right. So Newsom announced that lawsuit before Trump then escalated by sending in the Marines. So the LA Times had some footage on the highway outside of Los Angeles in that Eastern California desert. Here they are on their way to LA. Reuters has the report. Marines arrive in L.A. under Trump orders as protests spread to other cities. This came out today. Hundreds of U.S. Marines arrived in Los Angeles overnight, and more were expected on Tuesday under orders from President Donald Trump, who has also activated 4,000 National Guard troops to quell protests despite objections from California Governor Gavin Newsom and other local leaders. The city has seen days of public outrage since the Trump administration launched a series of immigration raids on Friday, though local officials said the demonstrations on Monday were largely peaceful. About half of the roughly 700 Marines that Trump ordered to Los Angeles arrived on Monday night, and the remaining troops will enter the city on Tuesday, a U.S. official told Reuters. The U.S. military did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump has justified his decision to deploy active military troops to Los Angeles by describing the protests as a violent occupation of the city, a characterization that Newsom and Bass have said is grossly exaggerated. Newsom said that Trump's deployment of National Guard troops has only inflamed the situation and made it more difficult for local law enforcement to respond to the demonstrations. In a statement on Monday, Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McConnell said the department had not been notified any Marines were traveling to the city and that their possible arrival presents a significant logistical and operational challenge for police. Trump's decision to mobilize 700 Marines based in Southern California escalated his confrontation with Newsom, who filed a lawsuit on Monday asserting that Trump's deployment of Guard troops without the governor's consent was illegal. The Guard deployment was the first time in decades that a president activated the Guard absent a request from a sitting governor. The top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Jack Reed, said he was gravely troubled by Trump's deployment of active duty Marines. Since our nation's founding, the American people have been perfectly clear. We do not want the military conducting law enforcement on U.S. soil. That is the key part of this. And this is, I've said this a lot these past few days between hosting here and hosting for Jimmy. We've done a lot of talking about this topic. This is, I won't say the end result, but as we talked about on Jimmy's show last night with Jimmy there, he made the point, this feels like the end result of a decades-long process that started shortly after 9/11 to basically transfer responsibilities from the Department of Justice to this newly formed Department of Homeland Security, where rules of engagement are different, standards of evidence are different, threshold of guilt is different. That's what the Patriot Act is. That combined with this private-public partnership where you get companies like Palantir involved in data consolidation, gathering, surveillance. Yeah, you're bringing this under the authority of the military. You're taking it out of the world of crime and punishment and criminal justice and into the world of militarism and military tribunals and military justice. It is a very significant and, yes, dangerous escalation in terms of how you approach these issues, whether it's protests, whether it's riots, when you start detaining people, when you start arresting people. The fact that the executive is taking such control over this, like I said, that is a significant step up, and it is no joke. So in a post on Tuesday morning on Truth Social, Trump claimed Los Angeles would be burning to the ground right now if he had not deployed troops to the city. Okay, what's crazy about that is that the riots have not stopped. They haven't gotten things under control. Things have gotten worse. You could tell the effectiveness of a strategy by the result it yields. And in this case, the result it yields has just been ongoing chaos. So you either have to, at that point, say that the strategy was a failure, or, much more likely, in my opinion, this is the strategy. The strategy is to amp up the militaristic presence on the ground, and with that, invite more chaos, which then in turn allows you to bring in more troops. Oh, there's protests. Now there's riots. The police aren't doing enough. So now we're going to bring in the National Guard. Then there's more riots. Well, the National Guard can't handle it. Now we have to send in the Marines, right? It has just been a pattern of escalation. None of these measures have actually created calm and order. Yet they go out and they claim that anyway. Protests spread to neighboring Orange County on Monday night after immigration raids there, with demonstrators gathering at the Santa Ana Federal Building, according to local officials and news reports. Protests also sprang up in at least 9 other U.S. cities on Monday, including New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco, according to local news reports. In Austin, Texas, police fired non-lethal munitions and detained several people as they clashed with a crowd of several hundred protesters. Now, what is the price tag on this response in L.A. alone? Just breaking before the show, $134 million. Elon be very displeased to hear that number. Now, you have to ask, okay, that's a lot of money. How much will it cost if they escalate similarly in cities around the country? Which they may do, because these protests are spreading. So here's one in Houston. Here's one in Dallas. This is just some, I guess, overhead footage with no sound, but crowds gathering in the streets in Dallas, Texas. We know, obviously, there were protests in New York City as well going on alongside the L.A. protests, which did not get much press. They were kind of upstaged by the L.A. protests, but here's some of that near Federal Plaza.
Okay, there you go.
Philadelphia had their protests as well. No video for that one, but we do have some video for the San Francisco march. So here is San Francisco marching against ICE. So as you could see there, in all of these sort of sister protests, if you want to call them that, although they are kind of part of the same protest movement, I would argue, vast majority of these protests are nonviolent, just like I'm sure if you pin a point on the map, the vast majority of the LA protests were nonviolent as well. And I've said over and over again, we don't have to exhaust this point. Newsom and Bass do themselves no favors by insisting that they have things under control as images and videos disseminate online of cars burning and, gas stations being looted. Recent polling has Trump polling around 50% on the immigration issue, which gives him a strong hand to play when he makes these escalatory moves. But these are escalatory moves, and you have to ask yourself, okay, if they're deploying the military to Los Angeles, what happens if these protests do spread to all these cities throughout the country? You know, Trump has been asked about the prospect of civil war, and of course they're downplaying that. But you are creating a situation where you're having very tense standoffs between the military and the public. And if, God forbid, these things do turn violent and you have a situation where the military is killing its own citizens on its own soil, yeah, that can get very, very dark and very dangerous very quickly. And we obviously hope to God it does not come to that. But you have to ask yourself, if these protests spread, if ICE continues escalating its raids and its operations, which they're saying they're going to, then yeah, you are creating a very, very volatile situation where things can get bad very quickly. And assuming they don't get bad in that way, which we obviously hope to God they don't, $134 million over the past couple of days. So what happens if they start having to make these moves in cities throughout the country? What's the price tag on this going to be? When are people who voted for this, shoot it into my veins, this is when I voted for, when are people who made that decision and who are so proud of what they're seeing right now in terms of the government response, when are they going to take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, look at all this. Is this all worth it? Is this worth it? For what? Don't forget, they arrested just over 100 undocumented immigrants in Los Angeles over the weekend. It's not like they rounded up 3,000, 4,000 people, 100 people. All this for 100 people. So at what point is the juice not worth the squeeze to the majority of people? That remains an open question, because the really unfortunate part of this, and the thing that makes this very complicated and very unpredictable, is that when Trump says, hey, I ran on this, I won on this, I have a mandate to do this, he's not lying. Like, he is right about that. And so at a certain point, you have to say the country kind of made its bed.
Yeah. This, like many other things, is not what it's purported to be, which we will see when we get into Palantir. This is not about immigrants. This is about restructuring society into a dystopian police state with a feudal economic system where a few tech overlords have total control over your personal information and are able to push a button and wipe you out with the full force of the government in 5 seconds. Now, you are seeing within the MAGA conversation, you are seeing some people who are wise to it, who are speaking out against it, who are literally saying, I'm not taking the bait on the LA riots, on immigration. My eyes are on Palantir. You are getting people from that corner
Sure.
of the world who are saying that. You also have a lot who are taking that bait, who think this is about immigration. And that is easy to do in a society where, for a lot of the population, the economic prospects are slim. And I would argue for the population in general, the culture is toxic. So when the culture is toxic and doesn't offer any sense of meaning, of purpose, of community, that makes a lot of people very vulnerable to the illusion of those things. I'm part of a movement. We're going to get those people out. And you know what? A lot of people click the like button on my posts when I scream about how much I hate those people.
Right.
So I'm going to say it again.
Right.
And a lot of the people who are driving that conversation, as we will see, they're getting paid, man. They're getting paid. I'm going to prove it to you. Some very high profile accounts. You remember that video of all the news anchors saying the same thing? I'm going to show you some of your favorite conservative commentators, MAGA commentators, all saying the same thing. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. They realized they couldn't sell it the Kamala way. They're selling it the Trump way in order to neutralize enough of the Second Amendment. I'm going to storm the Capitol if you keep pushing in this direction. They neutralize those people and get them on their side. Yeah, get those immigrants out. That's it. That's the whole point, man. Yo, pack of ketchup on the ear. Boom. Bought them the New World Order.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, yes, and you know, I don't disagree with any of that, but that's largely my point, is that because so many of these people have been psyoped in this way, Trump's polling on immigration creates space for him to do this.
Sure.
It just does.
Well, it's
I
the
mean,
only
you
thing
know,
that creates that space.
it's the only
That's
thing.
why they're doing it
Yeah,
this way.
but
There's no
it's
other
there.
way they could do it.
It's there. And when you want to take a step back, you know, there was CNN just did a segment that in 2000, I believe it was 2015. I might be getting that date wrong. I don't know what the first date was, but it was either late aughts or early to mid 2010s, sometime during the Obama years. The Democrats had a 32-point edge on the immigration issue. Now the Republicans have an 8-point edge on the immigration issue. And that is what allowed for this to happen. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, why did border crossings go up under Joe Biden? Was it to destabilize the labor market? Maybe. I mean, that seemed like a reasonable hypothesis at the time. Then again, these guys don't seem keen on undoing that, so that kind of makes you think a second time. And when you think a second time, hey, maybe they needed to manipulate the border situation in order to usher in Donald Trump, to get the $1 billion to Palantir because, as we've said, there was just not going to be any tolerance for this if you did this alongside transgender sports. But,
Yes,
man,
right.
Americans are an easy date, huh? Just give them their
Yep.
varsity girls sports and they'll let you do whatever you want.
Pretty
That's
much.
that's basically how this happened. Yeah. And here you are, Marines in L.A.
Please clap.